What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Scratch Agency podcast, hosted by Scratch Agents for Scratch Agents. This episode is brought to you by Virtual Intelligence, your premier partner for client-facing and back-office virtual employees. My name is Turnbull, founder of T5 Insurance Services in Clinton, New York, and I'm joined by my co-host today, the one and only, you already know, hold your applause, Mr. Shawn Fitzgerald, founder of Sound Harbor Insurance in Long Island, New York. Mr. Fitzgerald, looking nice in the new office over there. You got the nice oak cabinets behind you. You got the blazer on, the pocket square. You really got it dialed in today, I must say.
Thank you. Yeah, we went from, for those of you that don't know, I started my agency in the third bedroom of my house. Then I moved into I upgraded and then had about 92 square feet. And then I just upgraded again. And now I'm at around 300. So we're getting there.
That's right. Baby steps, baby.
That's
baby
it.
steps. Super excited for today's episode. As we do, we're going to get right into it. Very excited because a friend of our show, Ciara Gravier, said, hey, I know this person, Whitney, you have to have her on. It's going to be a fantastic episode. We said, say less. Whitney, I know that we had to cancel, I think, once or twice, probably Shawn's fault. So we'll just blame it on him. But we're making it happen. Whitney, welcome to the show. Whitney is the president of Ritchie Insurance Group based in Florida. We're super excited to have the conversation. How are you today?
I'm doing great. Thank you. I'm excited to be here. I know it did take a couple times with both of our schedules, but I'm glad to be here.
Yeah, you don't have to say both, Scott. Blame it on Shawn. Shawn canceled on us twice. It's fine.
Okay, so Shawn canceled, but it did take me like 2 months to find another date that we could do it. So he followed up and he's like, are we doing this? I was like, yeah, my next availability is 2 months out.
Love it. Love it. Well, here we are. We're excited for it. Whitney, can you just start with an intro of yourself and the agency and how you got started? And then I know there was a few specific topics that we definitely want to dive into, but just introduce us to you and how you got into the business and started your agency and all that.
Yes, absolutely. So I am almost 2 decades in the insurance business. I started on the captive side at State Farm. I have a lot of cool little State Farm overlap stories with some other agents in the state of Florida that pop up every couple of years that are pretty funny. But after being there for 7 years and getting a lot of great training and experience, look, Florida is really unique. And it became apparent to me that if I wanted to be able to do all the things that I wanted to be able to accomplish, I needed to go the independent route. So after, I joke, if you would have met me in 2014, I was asking people on the street, should I open a franchise? Should I buy a book? Should I do this? Should I do that? And my path is a little bit unique. I ended up teaming up with a couple of friends that I had worked with previously at State Farm for a few years. And then when we all got enough momentum going, we kind of unwound. So Shawn, you're making me laugh with your stories about your office. If you want to go on our website or on our LinkedIn, I just wrote a whole thing last week or maybe the week before about specifically, it's been 5 years since I bought this office building, which was not something remotely that I was thinking about doing. And we started in a very, very small, the first 4.5 years in a small office that the door would actually hit Marie's desk when we would open. And I mean, you talk about scrappy. We had this thing called a wireless home phone that was a cordless phone that you could plug into the wall, but then like unplug it and take it with you if you're working from home and that kind of a thing. And so when somebody would call and you'd be like, oh, hello. Yes. You want to talk to Shawn? Okay, hold please. And we would put them on mute and toss the phone across the room. And you'd be like, hi, hello, and people would be like, well, what if you got 2 calls at once? And we'd be like, please, we're a scratch agency. We don't get 2 calls at once. We don't have clients yet. Like that isn't the problems that, we wish for. So yeah, I mean, true scratch agent, me and a laptop, first day on the job, quoted my own homeowner's insurance. And I was like, how am I going to ever make this work? There is so much that I don't know and so much that I need to learn. And then a little unique part of my journey, about 6 months after starting the agency, I found out I was pregnant with twins. So also you mentioned, third bedroom of your house, our contingency plan, if I couldn't hire my first employee and get them properly licensed and everything to hold down the fort when I was actually going through physical childbirth and those first few weeks, our plan B was to turn our upstairs bedroom because you have to have a 220 agent in charge. Mm-hmm. So if he couldn't get his 220, that was our plan B. Because I'm a rule follower. I'm not going to try and skirt those rules.
Sure.
Luckily, he got the license though, and we opened. So yes, opened in 2014. We celebrated our big 10-year anniversary last year. took my whole team and their significant others on a company retreat to the Ritz-Carlton, which was something that I had on my vision board when I started the agency that I wanted to do. And there have been a lot of cool little, I'm in a very reflective era, by the way, right now. So lots of little things like that I've been able to pick off of my vision board that I've actually been able to make happen. So now we're about 25 people all in. We've won all kinds of awards for growth. We've got my little behind me.
Love it.
We have all kinds of these ones over here are the Gator 100 Award. That's not industry specific. That's fastest growing companies led by UF alumni in the world, which was another thing off of the vision board. We won our Fast 50, fastest growing in our city. And, it's really been just through a whole lot of work, lots of different seasons of the industry, seasons of my business. I laugh that if you look at any 3-year snapshot, it's like I was running a completely different business at each phase. And I think that that's really been one of the biggest keys to our success, because you've got to be nimble, you've got to be able to adapt, and you've got to find opportunities in many different markets. So that's our little backstory.
For I know we have specific topics we want to talk about, but I always like to ask this question. For people that are listening to this, we have a lot of people, I would say maybe in like the 1 to 5 year mark when we look at the listeners and all that. And like you said, it's almost like you look at those 3-year periods as different businesses and different seasons. Like, what would you say to those people if you were to go back to 2014 and think about those early days of when you first started? You talked about quoting your first home policy and all that. Like, what would you say to those people that are in the building phase right now?
So a lot of the things that have given me an advantage are more like living really lean, like in your personal life. That was something that, because we did that, we drove older cars. When I found out I was pregnant with the twins, gosh, guys, it was so scary. My first thought was, where am I going to put them? Very quickly followed by, how am I going to pay for them? And so I was making no money. I just started. So we sat down, my husband and I, with pen, paper, calculator, and we ended up getting an au pair, because that financially was a way that we could make it work. And we buckled in and we prepared for, I remember being like, just get Scarlett. That was my daughter, who was 2 when the twins were born. I'm like, if we can just get her to VPK, we'll pay off a car that same year and we'll be able, to breathe a lot. And so just planning really, really conservatively. And I've been quoted as saying, good karma is a great business plan. Man, in the beginning, you got to work. You have to work. Every opportunity, really try and not just write that business, but earn all of the referrals. Make sure you're fully on top of all of your follow-up and really, really careful with your reputation, because thankfully, everything that I tried to do happened faster than I had planned conservatively. So I never was so stressed that I wasn't going to be able to live my life and get things done financially, because I planned so conservatively. Very good advice that I got early was, when hiring people, think about their cost monthly versus their annual salary, and be real clear on what you need from them for each month to make sense. And look, you got to have a ramp up period. You got to be comfortable for that, 3 to 6 months to be making it work. But be aware, month over month, you're not paying their whole salary right away. You're only paying. So that made me feel a lot more comfortable in bringing on new folks. And I think that that's probably the biggest. I'm assuming if you host a podcast like this, you've read E-Myth, and you probably could see it on the books behind you. I recognize a few of those. I see Traction. Is that what the heck is EOS?
Yep.
I see Baby. Yeah. Never Split the Difference. The ones I recognize from the colors. But that is a big piece. Your business can't operate without you. Or if your business can't operate without you, then you don't have a business. You have, a very, very stressful job. Mm-hmm. So that would be one thing. And another thing, we're just now 10 years later, doing some things I can't believe that we're doing with technology, going in a path I thought that, and we spent 9 years prior, really specialized, really customized, building things out. And then what did we learn? Well, it's so hard to onboard people when they have to learn this super customized thing.
Yeah.
And we've done a full 180. And now we will pick the product that plays nicer in our ecosystem than the one that's cooler and that maybe is a standalone, a superior product. If it doesn't play nice with the stuff that we already have set up, it's a no right now. And now we can onboard people far more quickly and serve clients better and feel the benefit, because training people is exhausting, right? And when you're not having to do that all the time, it's better for everybody. They can really feel those benefits.
Yeah, Whitney, I love that. There's a lot there. One thing I wanted to ask you about specifically, because you touched on it earlier, is about taking your team to the Ritz, and specifically how you created a vision board for it when you first started the agency. And I just think this can bring a lot of value to scratch agents, because it's something I've been thinking a lot about, and something I used to struggle with is not knowing what the end goal or the vision is for the agency. And I think it's one of the most important things you can do as a scratch agent. So can you just talk through that process of why that was important to you? And like, I wrote this quote down. It's so funny. I wrote this quote down for a webinar we're doing after this, is that vision drives behavior and vision sets the standard, right? So if you know your vision, you'll then understand what your daily standard is to hit that goal, right? So I'm just curious, when you first opened the agency and you had your vision board, like what were some of the things on your daily list or weekly goals that you know you needed to do to hit that vision?
So in the beginning, honestly, sales solves a lot of problems. So it was very much in the beginning as simple as sell as much as possible. Really, really stack the deck and hire people who can do that, who are bought into that vision. Now, if I'm being honest, a lot of the stuff on my vision board, I was copying other people, people that I admire and people that were doing. So when the Gator 100 award came out, that award's only been around 10 years. So when it first came out, you had to be in business for 3 years. You had to have certain minimum revenue. I reorganized my business, as I mentioned, when I had the friendly separation from my prior business partners. And so I had to start all over because I was under a new EIN. But that was because clients of mine, friends of mine, they were doing big things. They were winning that award. I wanted to do that too. So, if it's something like that, you can find out specifically, well, what are the qualifications? What do we have to hit? I have a great story. I'll give a shout out to Jeff Davis, who was a former business coach of mine. He had a group called 12 Mavens, which was the first mastermind group that I was a part of. And he hosts this event every year called Plan the Attack. And you go through this binder and you go through these exercises about, what does your ideal day look like? And what does your ideal week look like? And what are your unique strengths and abilities? And what can you do to create the life, that you want to live? And he had everybody, and it's the same binder every year, which is kind of cool because you can pull those out and look back at them. But the one that stands out to me the most was, you write the goal and then you write the thing that you're going to do when you hit it. And I remember that I wrote, this is a little bit of an overshare, but I know that the audience are scratch agents and I want them to feel inspired by this. So don't, forgive me for sounding slightly obnoxious with what I'm about to say. But I wrote the big goal. I wanted to bring in enough monthly revenue that was the cost of a swimming pool at that time. And when I did that, I was going to sign a contract to finance it, but to put in a swimming pool. And my goal at the time was to try to do that in the next year, 12 to 18 months. And I did it in 2 or 3, because writing it down, and it was awesome. I signed the contract. The next year we're back at Plan the Attack. Jeff sees me in the audience. He's like, can I tell them? And I'm like, go on. And then don't you know, because life is so funny, my swimming pool contractor was also attending the event, at the other side of the room. And so that was a cool little community moment. But if you write the stuff down, you can see it, you can feel it, you can, know where you're heading. And this season, I was talking to one of my new guys on the team, one of my new sales folks, and he's, eager and really driven and wants to do really, really well. And we're talking about books to read and to get him real fired up for sales. And this season that I'm in, I used to write, one of my mantras was be laser focused and hyper productive today. Okay. And then you kind of come up for air a little bit and get them in a reflective season. And I'm like, okay, does it have to be laser focused and hyper productive every day? Is that really serving me the best in this season? So now I write, be an impactful leader today. That's what I'm doing right now. I'm trying to harness, like, I'm entering my kingmaker season. I'm trying to elevate other people on the team and help them hit their goals. And you just can't do that when you've only been in business 2, 3, 4, 5 years, but when you've been around a little while and you've got the book and the clients built up, it's very rewarding.
Can we dive into the hiring process that you have worked through over the last 11 years of business and kind of take us through those seasons? Because you talk about, again, it's sticking out to me of, like, you look back at those 3-year marks as different types of businesses you felt like you were running. And I feel like a lot of scratch people start with just them, right? Like you said, start with them and a laptop and then get that admin help or get that first salesperson. And, we talk about how many different ways there is to skin the cat in this industry, especially in what we do. But can you walk us through that and what has led to your success of bringing on 25 people in 11 years in business?
So let's start at the beginning. So in the beginning, when I was making those first couple hires, I'm doing all the things. So I just needed someone to help do some of the things. And how that went was the first person that I hired did very similar thing. I mean, we both wrote business and service business. So the phone rang, whatever the person on the other end needed, that was what he or I did. Then when our book grew, we had some renewals and things going on. We brought on Marie on my team, who's been with me almost 9 years. She's now my VP of agency support. We brought her on, and she started to embody the role of, like, let me take everything off of your plate so that you guys can go sell. And that was wonderful to have that support. And, it's really cool to see how her role has evolved on the team now, because now she's the subject matter expert. She has all the experience. She's seen all the things before. She's a great mentor to the team, handles more of the more complex accounts and things like that. So we were in that phase. And then, you add 1 or 2 other people in similar roles. And we were really stuck at about that size for years. We were at, 3, 4, 5 people. And I remember this one year, we started the year and we ended the year with the same team. But we had like 4, 5, 6, maybe revolving door, different people throughout the year. And we're like, this is crazy. Like, and that was when we started feeling the pains of hiring is tough. Training people is tough. A hire that doesn't work out is expensive, both in money and resources and in time. And so that really was a big struggle for us. And as far as, how we got out of that, I would say probably 2 things. About 5 years ago, we started working with VAs, and we have just been incredibly fortunate to have just a really, really wonderful admin team that works super hard, super loyal. We didn't have the turnover that we had with our local team here on our admin team. So we could count on them. And so during that time period, like, that was when mortgage rates dropped. And so we had the refi boom, and we had a bajillion mortgage clause changes and all these types of things that are, oh my gosh, this is like thousands of manpower hours of unlicensed work. If we didn't have our admin team, we wouldn't have been able to do all of the other things. So that was a really big thing, taking that off of our plates. And then this issue was kind of a blur over a few years, but during the the COVID quarantine era and then the Great Resignation era, staffing was tough. It was really, really difficult. I remember one of those years I did my taxes at the end of the year, and I was like, I don't even remember some of these people who came and worked on the team. And we were in a position where we were just begging people to come and work for us. And that's crazy, right? I mean, that's just not a way to operate. That's not a good dynamic. You need people who are going to come with something to prove, who want to be a valued player on the team. And so out of the most painful growth, staffing, and industry period happening all at the same time. And I need to take a little detour to explain what I mean by that in Florida. Carriers were going out of business left and right in 2022. We had literally a standard operating procedure for what we would do when we would get that notification that said, in 30 days, these 200 some odd clients are going to have no insurance. And so we would do a ringless voicemail that we would send out after 6 p.m. because we couldn't handle the call back, that would be like, hey, at the end of the day, I'm just giving you a quick call. You're going to see this on the news. You're going to get this notification. We're going to reach out to you by email over the next week. Please stand by to hear from us. We got you. I mean, crazy. And I remember us being like, it's been 30 days. We haven't had a carrier go out of business. And then the next day we're like, who said it? So this is what we're dealing with. So not only is that challenging, it's challenging for clients, it's challenging for morale. The job that I'm hiring people to do is a different job than they would have been doing if they came to work for me 3 years prior or 3 years in the future. So out of that pain, we really decided that, okay, the role that we're having the most difficult time filling is the producer role. Our agency support team, they're great. People on that team, they join, they stay. Our admin team, solid. We're doing great there. So what can we do to change our business model so that we can play to our strengths and then just fill in the rest? So what we decided to do, this would have been, I guess, like the second half of 2022. My VP of sales, Noelle, she's still with me on the team. She and I said, all right, it's just going to be you and me. I went back into like full in trenches producer mode. She and I were the only new business people on the team, and everything that wasn't actually selling, we passed off to somebody else. So my assistant had a 440 license. The client says, yes, great. I'm going to send you, it was Marianne at the time, send you to Marianne. Marianne took care of everything. Admin did the paperwork, trailing docs, all of that. I'm on to the next one. And we took that 6 months or so, and I said it again and again and again and again. I said, for next year for us, I'm manifesting, I'm putting to the universe a world-class sales team, world-class sales team, world-class sales team. We didn't have it yet. We wanted it bad, but we're like, how are we going to get there? So in that regrouping time, which, to paint a picture of how extreme this was, we had on our outgoing message, if you called our office in this era, if you're an existing client, press 1 or whatever. If you're not, if you're a brand new client and you want a quote, this agency is taking a stance of we're prioritizing our current clients in this challenging market, and our turnaround time for new clients is going to be 3 weeks or something crazy like that. And so if this is cool with you, leave a message and we'll call you back then. And if it's not, good luck. Thank you for your patience as we navigate, this challenging market. I mean, that's crazy, like to think of that, but that's what we had to do. So we also pre-scripted, drafted, we called them the polite declines. We went through our business model. We redlined everything that was a time vampire or not profitable. And if somebody asked for that thing, boom, we hit them the polite decline. Sorry, as much as we want to help everyone due to staffing and market constraints, we have to pass on this one. Here's some recommendations of some other agents that may be able to help you, whatever. So that regroup period in that 6 months gave us the time to be able to come up for air. And then we did, for the first time, we hired our first cohort, and we hired 4 salespeople at the same time. I also brought on a manager who was really like a rah, like lovey kind of a individual. And she really made the people feel valued, cared about. Our retention for employees, she really helped with that during that time period. And of those 4 salespeople that we hired, 3 of them are still on the team. And that was a couple of years ago. So we trained them all together. We really, really poured into them for that. It also created a scenario. If you hire, think of if you hired 4 salespeople right now, what would they need? They need leads, right? They need to practice. And so what I was forced to do was get me out of the pipeline completely because they need the reps.
Yep.
And so that completely changed our business. I haven't done a quote in like 2 years. I now I'm the person that's like, hey, my dad's on the phone. Can somebody come show me how to send him ID cards or whatever? It's pretty comical. But that was how, and this has only been in like the last 2 years. But since then, since we brought those folks on, we've done it maybe 3 other times where we'll hire 3 or 4 people at the same time, knowing that typically if we hire 3, 4-ish, one won't work out for one reason or another. And hey, sometimes it's them, sometimes it's us, sometimes it's life. That's okay. But that's typically what happens. Again, we've done that 2 or 3 times since then, and it's really been wonderful. And what we found that happens is now we will keep job postings up because we don't want to miss somebody great, but most of the time we're getting a referral from somebody that, their agency went through an acquisition and we've got this great person, or the office went completely remote and the person like really wants to feel part of a team, and they'll get referred to us. So it went from being, I would say 3 years ago, that staffing was probably our number one biggest challenge, to now like it's something we're doing. I'm really proud of us. The way we're doing there.
Yeah, it seems like
Thanks.
once you went to the bulk hiring route, that seemed to be a big,
Oh my God, it's
a
wonderful.
big
But
shift.
it's a luxury. I wouldn't have been able to afford it when I was in the first couple of years.
Yeah. Explain to me how that process like came about and how you set that up, because I think that's a really interesting thing that we haven't touched on the podcast before.
Mm-hmm. Sure. So pretty much everything that I've done has been, we're only talking about the things I've done that worked. We're not talking about all the other things that I did that didn't work, that don't make the podcast. But that's how you get to those things. So I had done a lot of things with hiring that didn't. And so it was just another in the series of, let's try this thing and see if this works. And generally we try and keep doing things that are working and stop doing things that don't work. Having a culture of innovation is huge for me. And I have to explain to the team, I'm like, listen, I need you guys bringing me ideas, and I need you to understand that I need you to bring me like 10 ideas, and we're going to not do 7 of them. But you have to get through, like I read some study that it was like, most people, if they are presented with a problem and they sit down and they try and find the solution, idea number about 12 is the first idea that's good enough. And that's where almost everybody stops. But the best idea isn't until like the 80th idea.
Yeah,
can I just much further in the future.
I got to just add to that, because that's such a good point. When I rebranded my agency, I sat down with a really known, respected logo designer. Mm-hmm. And the first thing he had us do is he said, hey, Shawn, it's going to be tedious. It's going to suck. But what I'm going to do is we need to get every bad idea off the table. Mm-hmm. So he said, I'm just going to draw, I forgot, it must have been over 100 different logos, 100 different names. And we had to sort through. And like you said, get rid of all the bad ones and then mm-hmm. keep the, couple of percentage ones that were good, and then mm-hmm. work from those. So I just wanted to add to that. I think that's a great idea.
And it's not just good. It's not just good enough. You want the best option. Yeah. So that's what we're just doing constantly. One of our core values, always be looking for ways to add value. Always, always, always. We're trying to get better. And the latest thing that we've done to support that, then I'll go back to the group hiring, but we've just rolled out a change management process. So now before we make any changes, we present to the team, we go through, why are we doing this? What are the benefits going to be? What are the consequences if we don't do this? Who are the key people that we need the buy-in from this? Who's going to own this? How are we going to measure this? And one of the biggest things I picked up from a commercial real estate conference that I just went to in Vegas, we hear, we're patting ourselves on the back. We're like, look at us go. Like we do a soft launch, like with one department before we roll it out to everybody. And that we think we're like doing great, but we're, because we're doing that and we're measuring the effectiveness. We weren't measuring at all adaptation. And if you're not measuring adaptation, you can create a scenario where you have a wonderful employee who wants to do a great job, and you roll out a new piece of technology that you're paying for, by the way, and she may every single day turn on her computer and it crashes, and she will choose taking care of the client and her client-facing role day after day after day And then 3 months goes by and she's not told anybody that it's not working. And now all of a sudden this is falling into the category of like bad behavior. You've got a wonderful employee who has bad behavior, which could have been completely prevented if we were measuring adaptation. And on week 1, we'd gone around and made sure on an individual basis, are you using it? Are you using it? So anyway, little detour there, but to bring you back to the group hiring, I mean, it just came out of a spirit of what's the most efficient way we can do this? If we're going to sit people down and we're going to teach them how to do a homeowner's quote, how to fill out accords, how to have a conversation with a referral partner, why not do it like a little boot camp, like an academy, and do it all together? So that's how that came to be. And it also mentally gets the team in the season of, okay, we're in hiring and interviewing season, and now we're in onboarding season. And they're a little more comfortable with, okay, buckle in. This person's going to have a million questions. This won't last forever. And then things we say are ping before you ring, or ping before you bring your questions. So they chat before they walk over and ambush everybody. And you can remind everybody of that when it's the whole team is doing this thing right now versus this one-off person.
So I want to dive into a similar topic that we're on, but more of just scaling your agency over the last 11 years and what you think the main key points of success for you have been from going from you and your laptop to now 11 years later with 25 people.
I was thinking about this. I think this is one of like the generic things of what the questions or the topics that we were going to talk about. And I was like, if I was to pinpoint it, it really came down to a couple key points of the most pain and the hardest, and being forced to make pretty drastic adaptations quickly. And so that was first getting pregnant with twins 6 months after starting an agency. Like, it's go time. I thought all my clients were going to leave me. I mean, I tried to keep it a secret, and because I was kind of small with my daughter, it wasn't showing for like a while. Well, yeah, I was so big, you guys, with twins. I was like, I would never forget that my first office was up the stairs, down the hall, around the corner. So I'd walk up the stairs and I'd walk down the hall, and there was a guy whose desk faced the hallway. So I would walk straight toward him, and he would hold his breath, and I would turn, and he'd be like, she's going to topple. She's going to topple over. She's going to be, So yeah, there was no hiding it. But because of that, like, I had to get my shit in gear, and I had to be like, these are all of our processes. This is how we're going to handle all of this. Somebody besides me is going to have to be ready to take care of all of this stuff if I'm not. And I sometimes wonder, if I hadn't gotten pregnant, I might have delayed hiring that first employee.
Yeah.
It's scary, right? But I didn't have a choice.
Right.
And then similarly, if the market hadn't hit complete rock bottom in Florida, how much longer, because we're so nice and we're helpful, would we have been saying yes and spending our time working on things that are not profitable for the agency? Would we have been bold enough to literally take red line through our business model? Like, you don't do that kind of stuff unless the pain is really that bad.
Yeah.
And then another little like silver lining that came out of that, because the pain was that bad, like with the staffing, and we were forced to run slim. That was how we could budget for hiring the 4 people at the same time, because we had been understaffed for like a few months in that area.
Gotcha. Yeah, I was going to ask you if you took out like a business loan or how you use, but that makes a lot of sense. Yeah, it's one thing I would add to that is I had a conversation with Brett Young not too long ago that talked exactly about what you just said about, because you were forced into uncomfortable situations, it pushed you and your agency to the next level, right? And that's one of the things Stephen and I talk a lot about is we have a big vision. We're in a season of growth. And whenever you have a big vision and you're trying to chase that goal, you're going to run into a lot of challenges, but you should look at them more as a blessing, because at the end of the day, because we're trying to push to the next level, that's why we have all these challenges that we have to overcome. And there's going to be a lot of failure that comes with that, but you're going to learn a ton from the process, like you did, Whitney. And I think there's just so much to learn from that. And I couldn't agree with it more. Is if you want to grow and push yourself to the next level, there's going to be a ton of challenges, but I'm not sure there's a better way to do it.
I mean, sometimes you have to just say to yourself, are you even an entrepreneur if you haven't been through da, 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 da,
Yeah.
if you haven't been through that, you mentioned Brett. So I've met him a few times. We've talked quite a bit. He's been down to some of these Power of Partnership summits that I've been invited to also. And so Ciara and I met in line at a bar. Literally, that's how we met. It was night one of an insurance conference that I went to by myself. I was like, oh, this thing's in Tampa and it's insurance. Like, my sister lives around the corner. I'll go check this thing out. I didn't know anybody that was going. And the first night, it was like, hey girl, like, oh, tequila or red wine or whatever it was. And we just like exchanged phone numbers to like meet up to go to the speaker or whatever the next day. And then we just kind of stayed in touch, as you do. She's a giver, and insurance people love to talk shop. So we'd stayed in touch a little bit, but Brett, I'm trying to think of all the people that were at this like impromptu mastermind thing we put on in Tampa. Mike Carey, I think you've seen him on the show. David Carruthers, Jason Cass was there. That's where I first met him. There were a few other people, but we're going around the room and we're having a conversation, very similar to this. And somebody pointed out, we're like, wait a minute. We all kind of have a story where we were counting on something happening and like we were like in on another plan. And then life happened in like kind of a big way. And, I don't want to say that we were all screwed over, but we all had a big shift of what we were planning on for our lives. And then life had other plans and we were forced to adapt in a really big way. And it was really interesting to have all these people that had gathered kind of randomly. We collected each other to talk shop and all had that in common. And we're all drawn to get together and talk shop about best practices and how to win.
Right. That is so cool. Just wrapping this up here, one of my favorite quotes is not, why is this happening to me, but what is this trying to teach me? And I think that's a theme of what we talked about. Like, you got to go through the seasons to go through the seasons. Whitney, one last question I want to ask you, and you joked how we're talking about all the things that worked well, but if tomorrow morning you woke up and it was just you and the laptop again, and you started over, 0 clients, what's one thing you would do differently? First thing that comes to mind.
So this is not the first time I've thought about this. I joke if I had to start it over, and I even have different variations of my doomsday plans. One of them is, if I could fill up this car, who would I take? What would I do of the team that I have? Now my team's going to listen to this and be like, who makes the seats in the car?
How big's the car?
Right. If I were to start this thing all over again, I would reach for more invested employees sooner, invest in them, pay them more to get them on the team sooner. I would try to get myself out of the pipeline sooner. Some of the stuff that I've done in the last 2 years since I haven't been writing direct business, with advocacy at the legislative level, serving on councils. I mean, the relationships that I've been able to deepen. I mean, one good thing that came out of this rotten market that we were in, it gave carriers and agents an opportunity to define partnership different than just production. That's what it was always before. Sell my stuff. We're selling your stuff. How can you help me sell more of your stuff? How can And in the hard market, they're like, we're closed for business. You can't sell our stuff. Or we're like, we're treading water. Like, what do you want from us? Kind of thing.
Right.
And we got to show up for each other, like I said, with some of this advocacy, serving on these councils, giving feedback, trying to fix problems. And that has been so valuable. I would have done that stuff sooner. Honestly, I didn't know probably the first 5 years I was in business, first half of my agency ownership, that there was this community out there of other insurance agents. I was like on an island. So many people in our role are multi-generational. Like they know about this. I didn't. I was just trying to write as much business as possible, make an impact on my community, help my team. And it wasn't until honestly, until I qualified for my first top performer trip. And then I was like, you guys are awesome. And you want to talk about insurance all the time? There's a lot of people out there that are awesome and want to talk about insurance all the time.
It is a very giving industry, that's for sure. There's a lot of incredible people that are even in my 3-year journey, coming up 3 years next week of owning the agency, like the amount of people that have influenced me or helped me get to where I am in just the 3 years is incredible. So you're absolutely right there.
I mean, and you guys, like I said, I'm really jealous of you in those ways that you know this stuff sooner. I mean, look at you, you're connecting with each other. All of these incredibly successful folks in our industry in other states across the whole country. And I had no idea of any of that. And think of how valuable that is. You have such a jump start. So I think that it's great that you're doing this. I think it's great that independent agents have this to listen to when they're starting off. I will share right before I got on this is a little shout out. One of my marketing reps for one of our top carriers. I was like, listen, I got to let you go. I'm going on a podcast. And he's like, which one? And I told him it was this one. He was like, shut up. I listen to them all the time. So this is a shout out to him. He's going to geek out in his car as he's driving around territories. But
very cool.
Yes, you guys are doing a great job, and I appreciate you having me on.
Yeah. Whitney, for anybody that might want to, pick your brain on something or just follow you along on your journey, what's the best way to follow you in social or get in touch with you?
Yeah, we're at Ritchie Insurance Group, our ICCI Insurance Group, everywhere. It's the easiest way to find us.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much for taking the time to join us. It was a fantastic conversation. Everybody, that's another episode of the Scratch Agency Podcast. Thanks for joining us. Do us a favor, like the show, share the show, and subscribe. Don't forget about our meetup we have coming up in Washington, D.C. on July 31st. We're capping it at 20 people. ScratchAgencyMastermind.com. You can get all the information there, so make sure to check that out. Reach out to Shawn and I if you have any questions on that. Most importantly, remember to dig down deep, believe in yourself, and own your own future. We'll see you next week. Take care.